Chelsea's Physics Show again. Today, I'm going to go over Newton's first law of motion. In Newton's first law of motion, he said that an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion with the same speed and direction, unless a force is applied to it. Such as, if somebody kicks a ball horizontally, and it will tend to stay at the same velocity and the same direction unless an outside force is applied. In this drawing, another person kicks the ball this way with a force. That means that the ball is now going at a different velocity, at a different direction. Inertia is this resistant change to the motion. And inertia depends solely on mass. The more mass, the more inertia you have. There are different types of forces, known as contact forces and non-contact forces. Contact forces are friction, tension, normal, air resistance, applied, and spring. Non-contact forces are gravitational, electrical, and magnetic. Mainly this means if the force is contacted to the object, then it's contact force. The reason gravitational force is non-contact is you can't touch gravity. It's just there. And electrical, if you think of two batteries or two magnets, they don't have to be totally connected, but there's still a force between them. And lastly, magnetic is the same thing with the magnets. Over here, I'm going to talk about the different types of forces: gravitational, normal, friction, air resistance, tension, and spring. First, gravitational force is the force pulling somebody down, like here. This is the force of gravity. And the force of gravity is pretty much known as the weight. And the force of gravity is known as mg, where g is 9.8 meters per second squared. The normal force is a counteractive force. Usually in this diagram, the person is at rest, so the forces are all balanced. So in this, Fn equals Fg. So because the net force is 0. Frictional force is if an object is moving in a certain direction, there's a force going in the opposite direction called the friction force. There are two types of friction: static and kinetic friction. Kinetic, as you all know, means that it is moving. Static means that the object is still. Say you're going to push a really heavy box. There is a certain force that you need to apply to it to get it moving. If it is still, then it's static. If the box starts moving, that's kinetic friction. There's a friction going this way, and then the static friction is also pushing back. And the main equation for force of friction is F equals mu, which is the coefficient of friction, times the normal force. Air-resistant force is a type of frictional force which acts upon objects as they travel through air, such as if I threw this box from a tall building, there's a force of gravity, but then there's also a force of air-resistant force, which is why it tends to slow down. there's tension force. Tension force pulls equally on objects on both ends of the rope. Let's go over here. Say I'm pulling a rope attached to a box. There is a tension force pulling on the box in this direction, and then the hand is pulling. There's a tension force this way, and these are equal. Lastly, the spring force is the force exerted by a compressed or stretched spring upon any object attached to it. For most springs, the magnitude of force is directly proportional to the amount of stretch or compression of the spring. Thank you for watching.